In a world of uncertainty,
River's jizzing in his pants, and then you bring up your wife in the next sentence. Like, I know where we're going. What is going on?
there is only one place you can turn for fair dinkum advice.
One word, unbelievable. 2 words, holy shit. 3 words, oh my god.
A place where the undeniably American
It sounds so weird in like an Australian accent.
meets the undeniably Aussie.
Hey, let's stop the foreskinning for some absolutely wonderful segments later.
Where the analysis is solid
I, for one, was not one of those haters, as I picked a Rams victory.
Look, I think he can get over 150 yards in this game, easily.
Kick his ass, Tyler Bass!
and everything else is out to kill you.
There's going to be shrinking nutsacks all over the place.
Welcome to the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
G'day and welcome into the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. I'm your host. My name's Matty C. I'm not nearly as notable as the guys who roll with me. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to refresh your memory about TikTok Taylor. Everyone loves a bit of Taylor on TikTok. And of course, Manjot, the myth, the man, the myth, the legend. I've messed that up twice. It's the Manjot, the myth, the legend. You would think I would be all over this by now. You've only been with us, since January. Manjot, welcome in as well.
Yeah.
Could I have done a worse job of that?
Yeah. It's only been 5 months, Matty. And you've already forgotten.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just start getting you guys to introduce yourselves because I'm clearly the butcher of Queen Anne over here.
Matty, rolling was the right word, because without exercise for the last few months for me, I really am rolling like a ball. I really am just a round shape right now.
Oh, gosh. Well,
Yeah,
we'll have you any shape, mate. It's always good to have you, mate.
Yeah, I'm just rolling around the hills at the moment, mate.
Manjot, how are you doing, mate? You're doing pretty well? You're looking well? Good.
yeah. Bit on the heaviest side.
Beard's thick.
He's on the heavier side. God.
I'm a little bit, but I'm getting
don't believe you.
shape. Look, I caught a touchdown last week. It's all good. Look, it was a good dive. I caught it and I secured it and then put it between me and the ground and just survive the ground. That's how you got to do it. Just like all those wide receivers we're going to talk about today.
Man, it is a heavy wide receiver show. And you could not ask for a better group of people. 3 wide receivers right here.
Yeah.
Actually, shout out. Quick. This is breaking news. I am actually going to be making my long-awaited basketball return tomorrow night. So I'm sorry for the floorboards. They're going to be extra stretched.
Mate, I've got to find out where this is happening and get a live stream. Like, I need to see this.
I hope there's some reinforced concrete underneath the floorboards. Otherwise, I'm going straight through.
And for those, it's almost everyone on earth who won't know this. Taylor and I were actually basketball teammates in like a men's D-grade midweek competition here in North Canberra. And mate, we were on the edge of finals. We were not a horrible team.
Mate,
mainly because you're a fringe NBL player.
Wasn't it? You guys come 15th or something the year before, and then we got third. We won the third and fourth playoff.
Yeah. And the only change of the team was that we added Taylor. Amazing what happens when you put a fringe NBL 6'7" guy in the paint. And that
was literally that was the first year I moved to Canberra as well, 2013.
That was the best. It was so good. Anyhow, I digress. Let's get back to my usual intro, because this is something we do at the start of every show. And I think it's important to do. It's a very Aussie thing. So for those of us who are regular passers-by who are Aussie, you'll be familiar with this. And for those from across the seas, this is something that has become quite big in Australian culture, and I really think is important for us to do. Manjot and I are on landers traditionally owned by the Ngunnawal people tonight, and Taylor on landers traditionally owned by the Darawal people. And we'd like to extend our respect to the elders of those nations, for the past, present, and future elders of those nations as well, and extend our respect to them. We're meeting on their land. It is traditionally their land, and we'd just like to pay those respects before we get any further. It's something that we do here in Australia, and I think is very important to do.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. Manjot.
We all love seeing Matty C lose in starts of the week. We're making
yes,
it return.
we do.
Myth.
I've mossed him one too many times and he's like, nope, I'm done. Okay, 1v1s are done.
Legend.
You know, I'm holding my breath. You know, my heart is my mouth. Like my heart, like traveled straight up, just like that kick. You know, it travels straight up into my mouth. My innocent brain has just died. It was like, Jimmy, just don't mess this up. Did anyone like notice that? Like
Aussie NFL Fantasy.
Like that's what I was gonna say in the GOAT segment, but I just forgot to say it. That's how life is as a 49ers fan. You know, can I make a bold claim? Look, Matty, I want to hear what you have to say. Like, just want to know. Oh.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
Now, it's a wide receiver show. A few of us are wide, a few of us are receivers, and a few of us are both. And we have painstakingly gone through and ranked our wide receivers. And, mate, there's going to be fights. There's going to be fights. Except for Manjot. He appears to have just ranked everybody on consensus, which is amazing.
Someone's got to keep us on the straight and narrow, Matty.
I love this. It's almost like this is backwards. Like, Manjot, if you're going to be in the middle, maybe you should be the host and Talor and I should just fight. But I want to see you guys fight. So I've circled a few where I need you to get the gloves out. I really do. Because I think surely people are getting tired of Talor and I fighting all the time. Surely.
Well, there's a few where me and Taylor agree, and then Matty is out of nowhere. So that's me and the Matty fights. Right? M&M's, yeah.
Well, look, I think the best bit is we can all agree on some things, and I don't know how we did this, but we all think Cooper Kupp is pretty good. Put him at number 1. We also think Justin Jefferson almost as good. Put him at number 2, and that is 100% agreement. We all think Cooper Kupp's 1. We all think Justin Jefferson's 2. Fellas, kumbaya. That feels good.
Done.
There's love and harmony.
Good shit. Good shit here, right?
Man, we're good. It's just hard-hitting analysis here at the Aussie NFL Fantasy Podcast.
Absolutely. You know, and it's great that we agree on absolutely every ranking after that. We don't. Immediately, the fights are going to start because...
yes.
And at number 3, and I mean, this is a little nitpicky, this one, because at number 3, it's only Davante Adams, you know, amazing receiver who's just managed to sneak across to the West Coast and is now playing at a completely new offense with a quarterback he knows pretty well. Now, you would think that having Davante Adams ranked 4th is a pretty good ranking from any ranker. I've put him at 3, and it's enough to drag him up to 3. But seething hate and dispassion from both Manjot and Talor putting him at 4 because our wide receiver number 4 on consensus, you guys both like him at 3, and I like him at 6. Who wants to take the lead on Jamar Chase?
I'll let Manjot go here, mate. He's a youngin', young, strapping wide receiver running for the Bengals. You just tear Matty to shreds, Manjot. Okay. Just go.
You guys have him 3, and I've got Davante Adams 3, and all of a sudden I'm the idiot. So I need to hear about it.
Yeah. So I'm a young dude.
Mate. You've been an idiot for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm a young dude who plays wide receiver. You know who I don't exactly play like Jamar Chase, but I dream of playing like Jamar Chase because he's just an absolutely incredible receiver. He transformed the entire Bengals offense. Joe Burrow throwing it to him a million times. I think that'll still continue in 2022. Look, 2021 wasn't a one-off rookie sort of thing. We saw it Jefferson, some people, not everyone, but there was a bit of a movement where they were like, oh yeah, Jefferson's going to fall off. It was just a good rookie year. He backs it up. He got a good year again. I think Chase is going to do the same thing. You know, LSU teammates, they probably have similar play styles. I think they're going to be in the top 3 as well. I don't think Chase is going to fall off necessarily because we've seen it with Jefferson and Chase I think he's a slightly less player than Jefferson, but he's still up there with Jefferson. So I think in Dynasty especially, you'd want them as the 1 and the 2 as well. Just want to put that as a side note. But I don't think Jamar Chase is falling off this year, to be honest.
And Talor, you are full of agreement on this, so I take it?
Honestly, what's not to love? Like this Bengals offense is just only getting better. They're young, they're exciting. I think you do have to temper some expectations. There's probably some people seeing the last 2 regular season games last year and thinking that's the norm, where Burrow was just throwing for like 480 yards and, and just going absolutely gangbusters. You do have to temper some expectation there, because if you look at the other 14 or 15 games, they actually were one of the slower paced teams in the league. But the thing is, I don't see that going backwards. I only see that going forwards. Like Zach Taylor would have to be really, really dumb not to at least see that and go, we need to put a bit more passing into our offense, especially when we have Burrow and Chase and Higgins, all these young guys absolutely dominating. I just think he's going to have to play. He's going to have to take the percentage and lift it a bit more in the passing game. That's only going to help Chase. Like, he is phenomenal. Well, honestly, I'm thinking my three, wide receiver 3 could be too low. Like, he honestly could easily be the wide receiver 1 this year. And that's what you're kind of looking for in that top 5, is the upside that you could be the number 1. And honestly, a lot of wide receivers take a leap in their second year. If he takes a leap from what he did last year, it is going to be just unearthly numbers. Like, it's going to be insane. So I just cannot have this guy any lower than 3. This offense is only going to get better this year. I know they're going to probably have a little bit of a hangover from the Super Bowl from last year, but Chase is just too good. He's too good at separating, and Burrow's just going to hit him every single time. They're just freak athletes, and I just can't see him being any lower than 3 unless, an unlucky injury or something happened.
Well, look, I love the cases you make for Jamar Chase, and I can introduce you to the guy who couldn't have him as high as 3, who has to have him lower, because that's me. But, it's not like I'm putting him behind a bunch of mugs. The fellas who I've got ahead of him, I've got a real reason to believe that, it's not a crazy thing to do. And I've got Jamar Chase at the depths of 6. So it's not like I hate the guy. But potentially, if this is the flavor of Jamar Chase getting around, then there's a hot chance I don't own him this year. Overall, it makes him our wide receiver 4. And even if I had flip-flopped him around a little bit and pulled him up a little higher, it would not have done enough to pull him ahead of Devontae Adams, I don't think. So, look, it is one of these things where do we believe that the Bengals offense can continue the pace they had at the end of last year? Well, no. I mean, there's a lot of people who believe that that's possible because of how we've got ranked other players in that offense across other positions, and even here at the other wide receivers. We start to diverge pretty quickly here. Our number 5 consensus is Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it is not all hugs and cuddles and everyone has him at 5. This is one where I've put him ahead of Jamar Chase, and I've got him as my wide receiver 4. Manjot, also really common sense guy, puts him at number 5, but Taylor, I don't know. What happened here, mate? You've got him at 8, and I need to get my head around it.
This is going to suck because I really like Mike Evans, and it's going to come across that I am hating on him. It's hard, right? Because he hasn't been higher than wide receiver 8 for a long time. Like, he's more of a consistent player than he is so much a breakout that goes in the top 5 and wide receiver in fantasy. That's why it's hard for me to go, all right, this guy's all of a sudden in, what is he, at 30 or 30? I've got no idea what his age is. It's got to be high 20s, if not early 30s. It's hard for me to go, all right, this guy's at a point where he's going to break out and go and be an even better receiver than he's been in fantasy in every other year. Don't get me wrong. I see the path for him. There's no Chris Godwin at the start of the year. Yeah. Brady clearly likes him, clearly has a bit of a mind meld going with him. But I just don't see the path for him to be far better than he's been in other years. But I still have him at 8. Like, I actually just tried to pick him up in the People's Dynasty team this week. I just thought that was a good opportunity because I figured him being a bit older, I'm not saying he's not going to be great this year. He's going to be phenomenal. But that's why I wanted him, because I was like, well, maybe someone who has him who's not contending for a title now might want to pass him up because he might be tailing off a little bit, going into his early 30s. But I don't hate him. He's wide receiver 8 for me, just purely based on what I've seen in the past and the fact he doesn't quite have that breakout ability like a Jamar Chase where he could go give you 200 yards in a game. I'm more confident that he's going to get 80 to 100 and, probably a TD in there. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't see the breakout coming.
Well, I mean, it's not like the guys you put ahead of Mike Evans are bums either, right? At this point of wide receiver is kind of like, well, what's your favorite flavor? And I think for each of us, we've kind of got a different guy who we think is our flavor there. And Manjot, like, do you see the same thing as me? I'm like, well, there's no Gronk. There's no Chris Godwin early on.
Mike Evans show, yes. Because
I just
all he
didn't think the
has
maths
is
was that
Gage.
hard.
Yeah, Gage. What, they got Braden Howard still at tight end. So there's still some quality options for Brady to throw to. But
Well, they
there's no one
drafted
like,
a tight end too as well, didn't they? So it's just they've got options
so,
on
yeah.
options. But I mean, I'm not scared of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Evans is
Cyril
turning
Watson or whatever
29.
that guy's name was. Tyler Johnson, I don't think stayed. Like I'm just there's
Scotty.
not a lot of stuff that scare me.
Grayson? Was it Grayson?
Cyril Grayson.
Cyril
that's
Grayson.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rashad Perriman.
I'm not scared
Who's
of
the
that.
other? Who's the other dude? I was saying Scotty Miller. Yeah.
Scotty Miller.
Mr. Scotty. Yeah. But honestly, I see Mike Evans' touchdown machine as always. He's always in the top 2 or 3 in touchdowns in the NFL amongst wide receivers. So that's why I'm really hinting at his fantasy value. He's going to get a lot of 6-pointers.
He leads the league forever in 1 and 2 yard receiving touchdowns, doesn't he? That's just his gravy, right?
Yeah.
There was that great game where he had 2 catches, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Falcons. I think that was that last year or the year before?
No, it was the start of last year when he only played one hamstring for the first 4 weeks.
It was great.
He's had like 1,000 yards in like 8 straight seasons or something. I can't remember the exact number, but he's had like he's had 1,000 yards. He's so consistent. He's almost too consistent for me to want to jack him up by. Like he's just the constant that you know what you're going to get out of him. Matty did say about the hamstring stuff. That's my only concern is he can get injured a bit.
Play every game. No,
definitely not. But he's so consistent. Like he's phenomenal. I really do like him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go in decline as he's only 29. He's coming at the pretty much last year of his prime. If we're saying 27 to 30 is like your prime, this is essentially like the last couple of years of his prime. I think he's going to be a good wide receiver, going to get his touchdowns again, maybe add a few more receiving yards and a few more catches because the other guys have gone down. So that's why I'm putting him at 5, because I think he has that top 5 potential. This might be an actual sort of breakout sort of thing for him. Well, because he's been consistent this whole time. But if there's one year where he can have a really big year, he has the tools to have it because he actually has a QB because he had Winston and whoever was it in 2014, Josh Freeman, was it? He had some gross QBs in 2014.
Freeman.
Yeah, he had some gross QBs in 2014. Then he had the Winston experience. And then with Brady, he's had to contend with Godwin and Gronk for targets. So now it's up to Evans. He's got a premium chance to get it. The only question is double teams and double coverage and everything. How much the Bucs run the ball with Lenny. But that's like the only things I can see going wrong with Evans is if they deviate a bit too much.
And whatever game is against Marshall and Lattimore, that's the ones you got to worry about.
The 0 target game that is coming every year. But then he makes up for it with like a 39-point game against the Texans or something like that. Like he just finds ways to
I
make
got
it
to
up.
write some notes.
Okay.
I'm drafting Mike Evans. So I got to write some notes. Okay, don't start him against the Saints unless Marshall and Lattimore's injured. Yeah,
and I just had a look, and he finished as wide receiver 6 last year. So again, he really is in that range, and he is a phenomenal player.
Yeah. So what does it take to believe that you should draft him there? Well, maybe I'm being a little ambitious, but when the other options are guys like Taylor, and I love that you've done this. You've got Stephon Diggs at number 4, and I have never been that brave to really give Stephon Diggs the credit. And here I am. I've got him at 8. Manjot's got him at 7. Talk me through then. This is pretty much the swap, right? I've got Evans at 4. You've got Diggs at 4. Tell me what it is about Diggs that gives you that confidence.
And look, it's a lot of what you saw from what I said about Dawson Knox in the earlier tight end piece, but just seeing him get extended, getting that new contract, it clearly shows that the Bills are putting that into him. They've seen, against that whole chicken of the egg thing, where as soon as he came there, Josh Allen all of a sudden went from one of the least accurate passers in the league to the most accurate passer in the league. Was it Stephon Diggs, or did Josh Allen just make Diggs better? It's really hard to work out. But clearly those two work really, really well together. It's going to be the most high-powered offense in the league. They're going to pass an absolute crap ton. I actually feel like Stephon Diggs was weirdly slept on last year. Like everyone expected, because of his wide receiver 2 finish the year before, that he was just going to come out and absolutely dominate. And he would have like wide receiver 8, 9, 10 finishes on weeks, and everyone was disappointed. I feel like you kind of had to take a look at the season as a whole and realize that the guy was still easily a top 10 wide receiver last year. Like it was just a weird year where he didn't have the like enormous game that won you weeks. He was just a bit too consistent, almost like what I just said with Mike Evans. But I just think this year we've seen with the Bills, we've seen Cole Beasley go. I believe Sanders probably will be gone.
Probably. Yeah.
I just think there's more opportunities opened up, and Diggs clearly is the guy. He's clearly the one on that team. So I just can only see another phenomenal year for this guy, and because he's on that team, it just bumps him into that top 5 for me. I just think there's too much upside being a Bills number 1 wide receiver.
Manjot, you also don't mind yourself a little bit of Stephon Diggs because you got him at 7. Again, Manjot in the middle. Is there anything that Taylor hasn't covered about Stephon Diggs that you think is worth bringing up too?
Well, it's in the middle, but more towards Matty's end of the middle. Yeah, that's a weird way to say it. So I'm a more Matty leaning sort of person here.
Don't do that often, mate.
Yeah, but honestly, I think Taylor is a tiny bit high on Diggs. I think there's a few guys ahead of him. I think the Josh Allen sort of thing, I'm predicting a Gabriel Davis sort of breakout season in fantasy. That's why I'm going a bit lower on Diggs, is because I'm really seeing Gabriel Davis go higher after that 1 million touchdown game against the Chiefs last year. But as Taylor said, yes, I am sleeping on Diggs a little bit because he's been way too consistent. I had Diggs in a couple teams last year. I was like, why is he not getting the points, man? Where are the points going? But as Taylor said, he's just consistent. He's just top 10 as usual. So yeah, it's just a weird one for me because Diggs could be a really good one, but also Gabriel Davis could be coming up. That's just what I'm seeing here. Yeah.
I like the look of Gabriel Davis too. I think because of where I saw Diggs the most was in the Astro League, which is a half PPR too. Then, if he's scoring you 11 points or 12 points a week, it doesn't knock your socks off. But gee, it's nice to know you can get 11 or 12 points every single week. So I think he was on Adam's team in our league there. And you're always nervous that it could be the week where he gets the second touchdown or he has the really long catch. And I think there's definitely a lot of things about Diggs that are really, really handy for fantasy. So if he does end up a top 5 receiver, I'm not going to be surprised at all. But I think he's still got a bit to do to be up there.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
So why not attack the host of this show?
I feel like we should organise some sort of prize for you or something. I don't know.
Last week, everyone had 8s. This week, everyone has Yades.
Aussie.
Funnily enough, this position is called tight end, but it's leaving me with my end less than tight.
NFL.
You know what you do. You go and get T. Higgins.
I don't know why. I just had this feeling you wouldn't like Joe Mixon.
David Montgomery.
Hunter Henry.
Jarvis Landry.
Teddy Two Gloves.
Kenyon Drake.
Fantasy.
Byron Pringle was actually pretty good.
Yeah, mate. There's a Chris Kringle, that guy.
That didn't sound very exciting.
There's only one quarterback I think is hotter.
Don't take it. There's a pick I want, man. Don't take it, mate.
This is how big of a fan I am. I have a 49ers checker set.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
The only thing that was tightening up was my pants.
A guy who has been perennially a top 5 wide receiver at just because he's flash and bang and his volume, and he can do either, has been Tyreek Hill. And given the new scenery, I couldn't tell you how shocked I was to see us rank him 6, 7, and 8 across the board, and we've made him consensus number 7. And there's so little gap between us, considering this is a guy who can put up a 38-point week or a 6-point week. Taylor, you have him at 6. What do you see about Tyreek Hill? You're the highest out of us. What do you see about Tyreek Hill that you like? Miami.
Again, I'm probably a bit higher on Tua than most. I actually believe that he is going to take that step forward. But I think we're going to see less of what you just said out of Tyreek Hill. I don't think we're going to see 38s or sixes. I reckon we're going to see more what you saw out of Diggs. 12s, 13s, 14s. I think his huge bust out, win you the week games, they're going to go. I don't see them happening. I don't think that's who Tyreek's going to be at the Dolphins. I just don't believe Tua can facilitate that like Mahomes did. So all these people like worried about Tyreek because of the obvious drop off a quarterback. I'm not trying to say Tua is all of a sudden Mahomes. I just think that's just going to mean that he's not going to have these enormous big plays, but I think they're going to use him more in the intermediate, and he's going to get far more targets, and he's going to end up actually a bit more of a volume receiver than he ever was at the Chiefs. And so I just think that's going to get him high enough because he's still so quick. Like you saw a couple of plays at the end of that Bills playoff game where they would give him a short target and then he would just run it in. Like he could take one in from 55 yards out because he's just so fast and he just hits that corner and no one can stop him because he's so quick. So I can see a lot more of that in Miami. I just don't see any of the holy shit, like the quarterback's going to get sacked and he beats 5 people and all of a sudden flings it down to Tyreek Hill for 70 yards and gets, I don't see any of that, but we're going to see plenty more volume and a lot more sort of smallerish plays that are going to actually make Tyreek Hill more consistent than he was at the Chiefs. That's what I believe. And so I can see him fitting around that sort of 7-8 in the wide receiver position.
Well, Manjot, you got him in the same sort of range. Similar reasons?
Yeah, I mean, I did go lower than you guys because his quarterback is not Mahomes anymore. It's Tua. Now, that's not a knock. That's not a knock on Tua. I'm not doing any Tua slander here, but he's not Mahomes. That's just the thing. Mahomes is a completely different beast. Top 3 quarterback. Tua's not a top 3 quarterback, to be honest. Until, might be this year, but we have to see it. I'm not going to say it until I see it. But he's got Waddle to contend with. He's got Gesicki. There's Edmonds. There's Mostert. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Miami. So I just don't know. To be honest, with Tyreek, I can see him fall off a bit this year because I know he's got that consistency that could come in. And he's going to get a lot more catch and run sort of situations. So that's really going to feed into his reception numbers. But I can see him fall off because he could honestly, the changing game style might be a little bit too much. He might not enjoy as much of the less of a deep throws. That's what I'm trying to say. He might not enjoy the less deep throws he's going to get. He's going to want more deep throws, but Tua is going to be up to him. It's, again, like I was saying on the tight end episode with Gesicki, his entire value for both of these guys are going to be dependent on Tua and whether he can make the leap. So that's, and also the scheming of Mike McDaniel's offense for Tyreek. He might get a few carries like jet sweeps, like you saw in Debo's rookie year, where Debo got a few runs coming from wide receiver and he's just running jet sweeps. I think that's exactly what Tyreek is going to get. I know Jalen Waddle's going to get a few more of those. He's going to be the more Debo star player than Tyreek. And then again, that's going to eat into more of Tyreek's sort of targets. But yeah, I do see Tyreek's not dropping off too much, but I'm not going to put him in the top 5, to be honest, or somewhat close. I'm just going to stick between top 5, top 10. That's where I'm just playing it safe. I'm not trying to predict a full drop off, but I'm predicting a semi drop off. Yeah.
All right. So it's maybe the ceiling isn't so high, but the floor is high. And all of a sudden he's not the win your week guy, but he's turning into something that's a bit more consistent. You can maybe rely on a little bit more, but not nearly a significantly high ceiling. Because, I mean, that was the appeal of Tyreek. He could just go out and bomb you up a 255-yard day, a couple of touchdowns. It's like, wow. Top 5 fantasy performance on a whole year. He could just do that. I'm just not sure he's got that capacity in this offense.
No, if you're drafting him, you need to forget the old Tyreek Hill. You need to forget that guy that you think can have 200 yards at half time like he did against the Bucks that time. You need to forget that that's the guy. You need to just realise that you're getting a very good value prospect. Like we said, the top three, I believe, is probably not in his sights anymore. Probably you're looking at his ceiling being the bottom of the top five sort of range, anywhere between 5 to 15. I can see his range being.
Yeah, and I think our ranking really reflects probably exactly that. Like, we're probably all on the slightly optimistic side just because we know what he was. And I think it's hard to forget that. But I mean, I don't know how we rank this fellow because, I'm pretty confident we could just clear out the rest of the show and let Manjot go hog wild on our number 8 consensus ranked player, because that is Deebo Samuel. And while Talor and I are not nearly as hot, we don't hate him. But gee, Manjot, you got him as your number 6 wide receiver. And things are changing a bit in San Francisco. But talk me through your optimism.
Yeah, look. Whoa, Deebo. Whoa, Deebo. That's what I'm chanting right now because I'm very high on Deebo, number 6. 100%. Could see him crack the top 5 very easily. Now, I do have a few concerns about Trey, his throwing motion and stuff, bit off when you see him develop that pass game. But the thing is, Deebo, I think they're still going to use him as a wide back. All this BS about him and the contract negotiations, I think it's all BS. You watch the Pro Bowl, he was all optimistic. He was like, oh, I'm going to be a wide back for the rest of my career or something. And even if he's not a wide back, he's still going to do the catch and run sort of thing.
So he is.
So, and he's going to get jet sweep runs as well. So literally, I'm not even concerned about all those wide back rumors. And I think he's still going to get a solid share of carries either way. He's going to get less carries, of course, because they just drafted I just can't remember his name because it's very long, but an LSU running back we just drafted. And he's very physical, runs between the tackles and everything. So I think he's going to replace Deebo's sort of running production. But we've also got Danny Gray as wide receiver. He's going to put in some catch and run work as well. But I think Deebo, he's still going to be a consistent part of our offense. He's going to be the kingpin. He's going to help Lance ease into the NFL. And I think Deebo is still going to get a lot of touches. I know there's still a lot of mouths to feed. Ayuk is going to come up big. We might get around to him later, but we might. I just don't remember where I ranked him. But look, Deebo, he's still going to be a star. He's still going to get carries. He's still going to get his receptions. And number 6 just seems like the right spot for him, for me.
And Taylor, look, you share a lot of optimism too. You have him at 7. Is there things that Manjot's not covering here that you want to add about Deebo Samuel? Because, I mean, he's in a good spot. We've seen what he can do.
Nah, I think it's just all system go for Deebo. You're going to see a lot of what you just saw last year. The only thing I would say is from what he finished last year, I think you just got to bake in the little bit of concern you have over Trey Lance starting. That's all I could see is like a change of quarterback sort of would change a bit of the motion that they do there. But I'm also very bullish on Trey Lance anyway. So I do think he's going to figure it out. His passing game might not be great at the start, but I just think that's going to create more opportunity for Deebo because he's going to need short intermediate routes when he's, sort of trying to figure out his long ball. So that's just all Deebo. Deebo's going to take a lot of those short sort of routes anyway. So I just don't see there really being a situation where Deebo falls like really out of the top 10 at all. So I just thought, look, I got to bake in a little bit of downside with being Trey Lance at the start, but I could also see Deebo just being in the top 5 again. So I just thought 7 just made sense.
And here I am. I'm the guy who hates him because I've ranked him at 9. I've made him a top 10 wide receiver like everybody else, and I'm the one who hates him. And really all mine is saying, well, I just think that the fantasy value in that offense, a lot of it now comes from Trey Lance's legs in a way that you just didn't have that threat with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think it just impacts Deebo's volume a little bit. And that's it. That's my one ding on him. I love the guy, but apparently you look at these rankings and all of a sudden I'm a jerk and I hate him forever. So Deebo, mate, you're on my Christmas card list. I will send you a Christmas card. You're a good guy. It's not that I hate you. We diverge a little bit here. This is the Dallas offense, which also we had a few things to say in the tight end show. CeeDee Lamb for us ranks anywhere between 5 and 10. So we're still putting him in that bottom half of the wide receiver one conversation. But Manjot, you got him at 10. What's your concern, brother?
Very concerned for some reason. I'm just very concerned for some reason. It's hard. There's something off about CD for me. I mean, he's still going to be a top 10 player, but something is going to be a very big concern. I was saying on the tight end show that they've got Jake Ferguson coming up the tight end. He's going to take some catches away from Dalton, whereas their wide receiver room kind of got a few more receivers in James Washington. Michael Gallup's gone up a bit, but he's coming off a torn ACL.
Yeah.
So that's going to give Gallup a good early season run. But where Gallup, I think he's going to lose a bit is the loss of Amari is going to impact CD. So I'm saying where CD will lose value is the loss of Amari, because I think this is going to be like a sort of Juju and AB situation where AB was taking away all the best cornerbacks and Juju was going off. I think that might be the sort of thing that could happen to CD. Now, CD is a way more talented player than Juju.
Yeah.
And I think CD will be a top 10 wide receiver. I still haven't ranked at 10.
Yep.
It's just, I just don't think he's as good as the other guys I have above him. Like, I don't think he's as good as Tyreek, Stephon, even the dude who's at number 10 in our consensus, who we'll get to in a second. I'm saving that up because I have to argue my case there as well. But CD, he's going to have a small drop, I think. So just don't get too high on him. That's just all I'm saying.
Well, Taylor's got him in the same neighborhood. I mean, Taylor, tell me about what you think about CD's prospects.
It was funny. I was listening to Manjot then, and he's got him at 10 and like saying some concerns. I don't have any concerns. Yeah. I've got him at 9. Like it's such a weird situation. Like it is similar to what Manjot said. Like for CD, it's just purely that there are some guys I just like a bit more. Like that's really all I can say. I talked up Dalton Schultz on the tight end pod, and there's no difference to me with CD. I just think there's huge vacated targets, and this team is going to throw. Don't get me wrong, they can be a bit annoying because the defense also scores a lot of points. So if they get in front in some games, they don't seem to pass it all in the second half, and that really can hurt. Yeah, I think it actually hurt Amari Cooper a bit last year. Yeah. But just in general, like he is going to be the one by mile in one of the most prolific passing offenses in the league and the most biggest scoring offense in the league for sure. So I think it's all systems go for CD this year. He had a good year, but he seemed to disappoint last year. It was kind of weird. I think a lot of people had huge expectations on him last year, and in the end, he was pretty good. But that's really what it was, and I just think he's ready for a breakout this year. There are concerns that they will put their best players on him, like Manjot said, but I'm really happy with him at 9 there. I think he's got the ability to jump towards that top 5. I think he could have an enormous year.
Yeah, and so I just went the overs on that. I'm just like, well, he's a terrifically talented player, and the weapons around him just aren't, to me, nearly as good, and Dak's going to chuck it. So, I just didn't have any concerns, and I was a little surprised that people weren't up there with me, but I guess I've just done the Debo, what Manjot did with Debo, and he's just done what I did with Debo, so it's fine.
You got to take your shots on guys like that. You think that there's potential to go top 5, and you really like him, and just do it.
100%. We've got through 9 so far, and we're at wide receiver 10. So this is pretty much the bottom of what we would consider to be your starting, your number 1, your lock it and load at wide receiver. And nobody loves this guy like Manjot. And he foreskinned it a little bit earlier. We don't talk about foreskin enough on the show, obviously. But tell me about the love of your life at number 9 for you in your consensus rankings.
Yes, sir. Keenan Allen.
Yes, sir.
My boy, Keenan Allen. Look, firstly, got his ranking a bit boosted. He got a +5 overall on this one. At least, not +5, +3, at least. He deserves to be top 12. This dude literally won me a couple leagues last year. So he deserves it. He deserves it. That's the only reason. But honestly, I know he's getting a bit older, and I know there's Mike Williams and Austin Eckler, but who throws the ball to him? Justin Herbert.
Taylor's husband.
Justin Herbert. That is it. That's the whole reason. That's the whole reason. My boy Justin Herbert. I mean, he's not as much of my boy as Taylor's boy, but
boy.
Keenan Allen is my boy. Though he's got to be. I'm owning this one. I don't care if he finishes later. I'm owning this one. If I go wrong here,
Is this your
if
ride
he's
or die?
finishing-
Is this what this is?
Yeah.
You're planting your flag.
this one's
it's
my
the Keenan Allen year.
I'm planning it. Keenan Allen, top 10 wide receiver, taken in all your drafts. He's got to be a second round guy, third round, early third round. People are going to be under drafting him.
Yeah,
he's going to be under drafted. I'm going to be pouncing on him every single draft. He's going to be in the 20s somewhere, and I'm going to be pouncing on him. Like I'm literally just going to dive onto him and just get him onto the team.
the man tackle him, a Manjot tackle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of love in that. Mate, I'm in the same sort of boat though. I had him at 10, but Taylor, even though he's got nothing but he's got the biggest erection in the world for Justin Herbert, he just doesn't believe in the Keenan Allen. He's got him at 13. Is this one of these ones where you've ranked him and then you've looked at us two and just gone, what?
No,
and you thought you were giving him an honest ranking, or are you like, what's going on?
No,
talk me through it.
I wish I was with Manjot. I feel sick, but I just had a look at like when Manjot was talking about him, and I'm like, please don't be the one that's the lowest on Keenan, and I was, and I feel so sick. There is no one that I've had more shares of in fantasy football than Keenan Allen. Every single year, I come up with some propaganda campaign or something about Keenan Allen halfway through the year saying that he's too lowly valued. I did a whole thing on the podcast last year and then went around and traded and picked him up in like 4 leagues.
Everywhere.
And he was part of my title win. He was, I think, 3 of the 4 leagues I picked him up in, I made the grand final in. Like he just was a huge part of my success. There was even a year, I want to say it was like 3 years ago, maybe 4. So I'm going deep in the Astro League. Mark Downey traded into me, and I cannot even remember who it was for. It was some absolute sack of shit.
No,
that
Garcon or something, was
it? But at the time, Keenan Allen was lower ranked than the person I traded. And then Keenan Allen went on to, I think he was wide receiver 1 in the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks that he gave him to me. And so Mark's always, pretty much ever since that moment, has had this weird thing about trading with me because he thinks that's going to happen again because it was just hilarious.
Yes.
But in general, I can't disagree with you going a bit higher on him, Manjot, because again, he is attached to my husband. He is the wide receiver 1 on that team. Yeah. I'm not worried about someone like Mike Williams because I think Mike Williams is always going to be a flash in the pan. Like Keenan Allen is the one because of his consistency. He's always, he's always a red zone target. He always is getting the most targets on that team. He might not always be getting the huge plays like a Mike Williams or, a Guyton or something, getting the 70 or 80 yarders. But he's always got the most targets and he's always finishing the season with the best stats. So I've got absolutely no problem with that. I think that division is going to throw a lot in general because they're all in the same division and they're all going to need to score points. So I think Keenan Allen is still one of the best route runners, still one of the best wide receivers in the league. So I've got no problem with that at all. And I feel sick that I'm the lowest on him.
And by some distance.
To sum up all the stories we were just telling about him, he's a league winner. I reckon getting Keenan Allen wins you your league. Is that what we were just saying?
Shout out Jackal. Shout out Jackal for trading into me.
Jackal.
Yeah. He's a league. He does turn it on in the late game, doesn't he? In the later part of the season.
Yeah,
where
he's got a history of it. Yeah, he does.
He's got some history. So I reckon Keenan with Herbert, they're going to score a lot of points. So Keenan's definitely in the league winner sort of conversation for sure.
Everyone out there, set your calendars to week 7, week 8 of when the season will be.
Yeah.
And just put a note in it saying, just trade for Keenan Allen.
This is the
or
week.
Just have a look at what he's at. Like, what was he when
just
I did
mid-October? Just
campaign,
get ready.
Remember what was it? I can't remember what week it was, but he was like, he was about wide receiver 30 something, and Mike Williams was like 4.
Three,
Like
four,
wide
something like
receiver
that.
4.
Crazy. Yeah.
And I said to you, I'm going to make the most bold call I'll ever make, and I'm going to tell you that Keenan Allen will finish in front of Mike Williams.
Might have
And
been
he
like
did.
week 5. Might have been like week
Yeah,
5.
and
It was when
there
Mike
was like
Williams was
20
just winning everyone their
There
week.
was at least 20 spots in front of him, if not more, in
it was
terms
a
of their
mile.
rank. And I was like, I
Chasm.
guarantee that Keenan Allen will still beat him, and he did.
Wasn't
And
that
it wasn't
the
even
start
close.
of that segment you guys made
The
of
buy
the bold
and
call?
sell. We
Yeah,
were
buy
doing
and
the
sell. That's
buy
what
low,
it's called.
sell high.
Yeah.
When we did
Yeah.
that once a
Yeah,
month
that's
last
the one.
year, and that was a great segment. And
Yes.
that
Yes.
was the value of it, because then Taylor's like, oh, I really believe in this guy. I need to go and get him in every league I can, and he did, and it worked.
Because he's available. Because people would be feeling the
People were
hurt,
hating
feeling
him,
like they needed more out of their wide receiver 1 or 2, and he's sitting at wide receiver 32 for the year.
Yeah, and that's the value of that segment. And then Taylor is the greatest exponent of it. He goes and backs up what he says, and it helps him go on and win only the hardest championship in all of fantasy football to win. Because and in this room we've got 3 championships between us, so it's there's definite credibility about that in this room. It's tell you, it was definitely part of your league winning moves last year was the Keenan Allen move, and there's no denying it. It's moves like that win you a championship in a tough league.
And it is like those sort of segments do help, because you actually get you to have a look at people that might be undervalued during a year and gives you the opportunity to go trade for them, because it definitely helps you massively.
Now, you say undervalued, and this is the perfect segue. This is what guys in radio like me love, is when someone says something, you can just pivot and go, oh, AJ Brown has just had the weirdest career in NFL and fantasy. And here he is now, since we started doing these rankings, he's changed teams in a whole different half of the NFL. Now he's a Philadelphia Eagle with the quarterback that we're not sure we love his passing prospects, but none of us have really tapered away on him. We've got him as our consensus 11 wide receiver, which is right on that fringe of still being a wide receiver 1. And you guys actually have him as your number 11 receivers, and you guys are in kumbaya, all in agreement. Who's going to take? I'm going to probably hand it to Taylor, being an ex-Titan. Why are we more nervous about AJ Brown?
That's my that draft move. Holy shit, that was. It was so unexpected. You saw all these other guys that were getting touted. I know AJ Brown was part of that group that was talking about the holdout and saying that he wanted a deal and things like that. But he definitely wasn't like Debo. Like there wasn't like all these trade rumors and stuff like that about him. And then he's the one that goes. It was just insane. Like the first initial thought was, why? Like for a team that's contending, like why would you take that sort of backward step and not just pay the guy? But look, I'm not going to go into it as a Titans fan. There's plenty of time for that later. I can see the good reasons to it. I can also see the bad reasons to it. So I'm sort of just sitting in the middle of it. But for AJ Brown specifically, I think I had him about 9 and I changed him to 11. I did give him a slight downtick because of going to Jalen Hurts. But you also have to factor in that he wasn't in a high power offense passing wise at Tennessee either. Like what he did was always off being really sort of, not consistent, sorry. What's the word I'm looking for? Being very efficient. Efficient's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
he was very efficient of what Tannehill was able to give him. They were very much a run-first offense, which is what you'll see at Philly as well. So Tannehill wasn't going out there and throwing for 250, 300 yards anyway. So what A.J. Brown had to do was very much build off efficiency, which he's going to have to do again with Jalen Hurts. So I couldn't bury him. I still think he's a very good wide receiver. He's just proven that by the deal he's been given. Definitely Philly sees him as that next step forward. And he definitely will be the target leader and will be the wide receiver 1 in that group, clearly. I can't put him higher just because of Jalen Hurts. I need to see it first. I need to see him take a huge leap forward in the passing game and not just run the ball himself all the time. But at the same time, I think it's going to be very similar to what he did at Tennessee, because both teams are very much run first.
Well, Manjot, do you see it similarly to Taylor then with the same ranking?
Yeah, I do, but I also see his value going higher because of Hurts compared to Tannehill, because Tannehill's more of a, what he is. Like, he's a quarterback, you know who he is. He's just gonna be a dude that isn't making flashy plays. He's gonna be like Jimmy G. You just know what those guys' values are. They're not gonna make big plays. They're not gonna provide more. They're not gonna give you extended plays or any sort of magical plays. They're just going to be consistent pocket passing QBs. Whereas with Hurts, he can still develop. If Nick Sirianni and those guys in the Eagles coaching staff can get their magic going, they can develop him into a good quarterback. It's just he has to show it. And I agree with Taylor. He has to show it. But I also see him being better than Tannehill. They're around the same range, but his upside is much higher than Tannehill's because Tannehill's a much bigger, like a more known product. I'm saying that's what I'm going with. That's why I think it's a bigger value play for AJ Brown. I think his value is going a little higher. Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's already made the playoffs, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we remember the Eagles made the playoffs last year, which is wild to me. And then they got their doors kicked in, but they definitely didn't belong. I mean, I put AJ Brown at 13, and I kind of felt like I was high. I mean, I know that he's an excellent receiver. I was just nervous about the volume, and I feel like I could probably knock him down some pegs. Given the guys I've got behind him, I actually kind of like some of them more. I probably do need to adjust that ranking a little bit. As it stands, he's our consensus number 11. And I feel like that is to be advised because I think each of us have got decisions to still make on that. And as the season approaches, we may change that. The next guy on our
huge
list.
Injury risk too. So I was just going to say, you have to factor in injury of AJ Brown. I know I always like to, I don't like to predict injuries and stuff on this. I rank based off health, but you have to factor it in. Like the guy can't stay on the field. I think when you look at it, I think he only missed like 4 games last season, but even when some of the games he played, he was definitely injured in them, or he came out early and stuff. He was just in and out of the team the whole year. They couldn't, as a team, like between him and Julio, like they just had no one. So it was just unbelievable. And I think that's a huge reason they made this move because they realized they got the first seed without basically a receiving core at all last year. So they're kind of like, well, why would we pay top dollar when we've just proven that, even without our best running back, we could actually still get a first seed. So, yeah, I can understand that.
Oh, that was so wild. Yeah. I mean, the team who I think surprised everybody with the Bengals, and here we are. They're the first team to show up with a second wide receiver in this list, and we've got T. Higgins at number 12. Do we really think that the Bengals have got enough firepower to keep 2 wide receivers this high up the rankings? We've got Taylor. You have T. Higgins at 10, and so that's Chase at 3, Higgins at 10 for you, and Manjot, you got a lot of love too. You got Chase at 3 and then Higgins at 13. But Tay, I'm going to throw to you first because you got the most faith.
Yes.
That's 2 top 10 wide receivers on the one team. It's a big call.
We all know my faith in T. Higgins. It's well documented on this podcast. It took me to a Super Bowl win in the starts of the week. But look, like I said with Jamar Chase, I think this team can only go forward with their passing volume. I think the answer lies somewhere between what they did most last year and what they finished. I don't think they're going to do what they did when they finished the year either. I just think there's an upside there that's by something that's in the middle because I don't think they're just going to just run Joe Mixon the entire time. Don't get me wrong. I like Joe Mixon too, especially with the upgraded O-line. But again, the upgraded O-line is another reason why I think T. Higgins is going to go better is because I think Burrow's just going to have more time. He's just going to have way more time to pick out his guys. And I just think that's going to help Chase and Higgins. I just think those two, honestly, are going to take that further leap forward and probably leave Tyler Boyd probably more in the intermediate, probably staying to what he was last year.
Yeah.
And I think those two are just going to be clear out. It's not going to be like a 3-headed monster anymore. It's going to be the 2 with Tyler Boyd sort of a bit behind, having the bit more consistent year. But I just think they're both set up for huge success this year. I've got no issue having them both in the top 10. Don't get me wrong, because they're both there might be slight consistency issues.
Yeah.
There might be some games where they both can't eat at the same time. You might have a game where Chase breaks out for 200 yards, so it might only be 70-odd yards for Higgins that week or something like that. but I just think
only.
over a course of yeah, exactly. Over a course of a season, I just think it's going to be consistent enough, and Higgins is going to have a big enough games there as well in that offense that look finishing around 10, I think is definitely what he's capable of. I don't see the top 5 upside for him. I think 10 is very much probably, as you've seen from you guys, on the higher side. But I can definitely see
100%.
somewhere between 5 and 10 as his ceiling. But I don't see him getting to that top 5. But I've definitely got huge raps on him, as we know.
Oh, totally. And look, Manjot, it's not like you're hating on the guy. You got him at 13. And most years, one team will provide 2 15 top wide receivers, and you're buying that's the Bengals this year as well. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think I'm buying into it a little bit, but I'm also cautious about T. Higgins. So it's a cautious optimism for me. T. Higgins, he's a very good wide receiver. He's a very good wide receiver too. That's a key number there too, because Chase is clearly number 1. Chase has way more boom or bust potential. So sometimes Higgins will have a good game if Chase is literally held to 50 yards. It would be the T. Higgins show, and it would be T. Higgins getting 100, 150. But it's going to be very hard to see Higgins getting consistently high because Chase is just going to go off again. He's just going to get like 150, 200-yard games. Maybe like he'll have 5 or 6 of those. And that's going to really eat into T. Higgins' sort of numbers. And of course, target share. You've got those sort of reception numbers and those receiving touchdown numbers. Now, Higgins, where he can differentiate himself from Chase a bit is in the red zone. If he can get a few more red zone touchdowns, he can make that top 15 and take some away from Chase. He can get up to that top 15. So I believe the touchdown numbers will go up for T. Higgins because they might be double teaming Chase in the end zone, putting a high safety on him or something. And then you get Higgins in a one-on-one. He might get a few touchdowns here and there. So that's where I'm putting the upside. Is not really the yards because I think Chase will own him in yards. Chase will have many good games in the 150 plus range. But Higgins will have those receiving touchdowns and maybe a couple receptions, like more than Chase. He might have as many or more receptions as Chase. He might be I'd say less, definitely, but there's potentially have more because of those red zone sort of things. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like any of us hate him. Me, who is the one who is the least faith in him, is at 14. So even I'm buying that this is the team who delivered 215 top 15 wide receivers this year. So, it's not like any of us hate him. I've pulled his number down a little by having him at 14, but it's not like I hate him.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. Taylor Talk time.
Oh, I'd gladly never meet Matty again. Oh, I agree.
that hurts here and
sorry. Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry, I realize I've got to get the trophy off you, so I take that back.
Yes. Then you can shut me out of your life forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Joe, let's stop the foreskinning. Let's stop the foreskinning for some absolutely wonderful segments later. And someone just pegs a dildo. Yes. It was a better pass than Mac Jones did all day. Oh, look at all the penalties we had against us. And the refs screwed us. That contract's as tight as a nun's you know what, mate. So you can't get out of this bad boy. Someone get me an adult nappy because I am moist.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
That's why we're on the podcast together, mate. We take shots at each other. Well done, Taylor. I'm not below shameless self-promotion.
Guys, we need to do the plugs real quick. Manjot, do you want to take us through the plugs? You're the best at this.
Yeah, so Instagram at Aussie NFL Fantasy. New generation, they all use TikTok. So at Aussie NFL Fantasy, we're going to be posting daily TikToks, maybe 6, 7, 8. We don't know. All 3 of us going to be chipping in, as I made Matty and Taylor sign in our TikTok contract agreements, especially Taylor, man. He's going to be smart about TikTok.
Huge money we're talking
There's
about.
some huge money here. TikTok partnerships and everything going to be coming soon. Facebook, there's still a Facebook Astro League 2021, which we haven't updated. You still got to update that name, Matty. See,
I always do it around draft time. I get it to 2022 around draft time. It's all right. I've got this.
Yeah, you got it. And then what else do we have? Literally the email. Yeah.
For oldies like me.
Yeah. Wait, was it Aussie NFL Fantasy at gmail.com?
That's
I almost
the
said
one.
Astro
We got a
League.
fax
You almost
machine.
did. You almost
What
did.
number's the
Yep,
fax
fax.
Yeah.
018. No, that's showing my age.
Send a pigeon, pigeon
Yes.
mail.
Hogwarts style. We're getting that Hedwig
Yes,
sort of
100%.
mail.
And Anchor
Voice
as well.
message. Yeah, voice message and Anchor. If you want your voice on the show with our voices, get your voice heard. Anchor.fm/Aussie NFL Fantasy. Any hyphens there, Matty?
No, that's it.
Okay,
Nailed
good,
it.
good. And
That's
then,
all of them.
of course, Instagram, our
Instagram.
best one. Yeah, we're running it up.
Where we live.
Some pastry press collabs as well. Obviously, pastry press NFL also has
Every
all your
day.
great needs
Every
for
day.
NFL content
Every day.
and
Check
all
out
the
Pastry
fantasy
Press.
content. All fantasy content powered by @Aussie NFL Fantasy as well. There we go.
Man, got it all there. Lads, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you all again soon. Any parting words from you, Taylor?
Yeah, if you want to fling any of your hate about the Warriors blowing a 2-0 lead to the Mavericks, it's at Pastry Press, either NFL or sports, or just go straight to the source, Manjot Melly.
Yep, straight there.
Yeah.
At the Go Jot.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, that is my personal. Well, that's a personal one I haven't posted on 5 years, man.
Yeah, but it likes
Yeah.
all our posts, so that's how I know it.
Yeah,
It's like at Matty Podcast. I'm not doing much there, but you can come and at me. All right, boys. Hooroo, look after yourselves. We'll be back to mock draft real soon.
yeah.
And he starts going like he just goes absolutely mental and then like nearly explodes.
Like the game show version of playing Nick Kyrgios, eh?
Ozzy,
So just to clarify, one team scores more points and they both lost to the Jets. So you have to take the team that scores more points.
Yes.
NFL,
You guys made me really thirsty with all those like trophy picks. Like
The trophy
I
is
was
making me thirsty.
fantasy,
Who won starts the week, Roland?
Let's not talk about it.
Okay, right. On to the next one.
this is what 20 years of being a Jacksonville Jaguars fan does to a man, I reckon.
I feel like this was so much easier when I wrote it down. You guys are making this sound so hard.
this is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
But it was in the Brady era. Yeah.
Everything's in the Brady era, mate.